You're watching WCSD Cable Television from Calloway County High School.
On April 24th, 2015, there was an explosion in the Silvertrails Distillery in Hardin, Kentucky that harmed 2 workers inside, giving them both severe burns all over their bodies. One of the workers, Kyle Rogers, had passed away, but today we have Jay Rogers, who survived, to tell us his story. My name is Luke Hale, and you're watching Calloway Connections. All right, this is Jay Rogers. Thank you for coming.
Glad to be here, Luke.
All right, so I was just wondering, what caused the explosion in the distillery?
We were running a lot of product. We were getting ready to release the new product, which was the George Jones White Lightning. We had been the night before to the grand opening, private invitation-only grand opening at the George Jones Museum in Nashville. We had a batch that had to be cooked, and we were there early the next morning, and just out of nowhere there was an explosion. We for a long time didn't know what actually caused it. All we knew that it was pressure, that it wasn't a fire explosion. It wasn't the fuel source or the heat source. The still was set up with a pressure valve on it, much like what a hot water heater has on it in your home. It should have never been quite as stout as it was. For a hot water heater, they're roughly 250 degrees and 150 pounds of pressure. The still should have never been any more pressure than maybe what a football holds at the absolute most. And it really, 5 pounds is dangerous with a still. So the fact that it had a valve on it that was rated for 150 pounds, it didn't help the case any. Something malfunctioned inside the still and caused it to back up. Therefore, the valve that was in place never released. The still ruptured, and when it did, it caused such percussion that it dropped us where we stood. The still was 4 feet wide, nearly 3,000 pounds. It jumped 55 feet outside the building, hitting 2 doors on the way out. Parts of it went as far as 90 feet from the building.
Yeah, as you can see by the picture that was shown, it completely leveled the building.
Yeah, that was a series of explosions that finally got it to the point to where it's at in the picture that folks are looking at. It was sealed off in different rooms, and when the fire, which didn't happen until later, we were out of the building before fire actually broke out, but we were a moonshine facility, so there was a lot of flammable product there. And just from the breakout of the fire reaching to different stages of the building, just different eruptions happened here and there.
Yeah.
The picture that people are looking at now is a picture of the particular still that blew up. It is a Revenue brand still. They actually made a comment to us at one point that the only reason they put the valve on there was just to keep the lawyers off their backs.
That doesn't sound too good.
No, it did not. The fact that they filed for bankruptcy the same day of the explosion didn't look so well either. I just wish that the gentleman that owned the business would have at least acknowledged the fact.
Yeah. And while we're on the topic of the initial explosion, what kind of injuries did you suffer from it?
I was burned what they consider full thickness burns, which is second degree or worse, over 80% of my body. I was burned totally over 95% roughly. It burned my inside of my ears. It took tops of my ears off. It burned inside my mouth. My feet and ankles were pretty much the only thing that wasn't burned. Oddly enough, that was where they took several harvests of skin grafts, is from the tops of my feet, and that actually hurt worse than the injuries did.
Yeah, I'm sure. And what kind of surgeries? You mentioned skin grafts, but how many and what kind of surgeries did you have to?
I've actually lost count, Luke. It's somewhere around 35 surgeries in 3 years. There was roughly almost 30 in 2 months. They were at one point doing a surgery every other day. The days that they didn't do surgery, we went through what was called hydrotherapy. It was almost like being awake for surgery. It was pretty brutal. Just a large room that they keep at 100 degrees, and it's built like a large tile shower, and they just take you in there and kind of clean you up, and it's not a pleasant experience.
Yeah, I've heard it's not a fun time at all.
No, a lot of other burn patients referred to it as the tank. It wasn't quite. Hydro sounds like a hot tub and something cool.
Yeah, something nice.
It wasn't.
And I remember hearing at the time that you threatened one of the doctors when they were.
I don't think it was one of them. I think it was all of them.
Because it was so bad, you just...
One of the first memories I have of being in the hospital, coming to, I didn't really know after leaving the helicopter if I went to like an emergency room or a trauma room. In a burn situation, you go to hydrotherapy. That's where they take you. Oddly, I wasn't out as long as I thought I was, because one of the first things they did was they shaved me. I had quite a bit of stubble going on, and I came to, and even with my hands as damaged as they were, my first memory was having the wound care therapist by the throat.
Yeah.
It was, he was a very large man, and he had not shaved in a couple of years, and waking up to him shaving me was not a...
Wasn't very...
No, it wasn't pleasant.
Wasn't very pleasant. And what kept you going through all that surgery? What was the light at the end of the tunnel? What restored a kind of faith in humanity with me also is the proverbial circling of the wagons, just family, friends, the industry alone. It was overwhelming to see that many people come together just for a couple distillers. You may remember at that time just the local businesses here. Of course, I wasn't here, but I got several photos and videos of the traffic through Taco John's, just from where they donated parts, of their earnings to us. The distilleries that people think are big corporate entities, they circle the wagons the same as the families did. They all showed their support in the same way.
Yes, they did. They brought food to the waiting rooms for our families, the nurses and doctors, even other patients' families, even other patients. They fed pretty much everybody at Vanderbilt that was on the 11th floor if they were there. It was that and just how many really good friends I have. Just the knowing that they were taking time away from their kids and taking time away from what they was doing to drive the 2 hours just to come sit and talk.
Yeah. Remember my father came by a few times.
He was a staple there.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of my closest friends, and that's one of the things that I look back on that I'm so proud of is the fact that it wasn't all of us there, because your dad helped us quite a bit. He and I have another friend named Jeff that also he came in and gave a lot of help. He worked in the business with Maker's Mark, and so we got to learn from him, and it was nice having a job too, to where I can involve my friends, and my employers and bosses looked to my friends as help and as friends also.
Yeah.
You know, that was a big plus to the job, and but a relief is knowing that it wasn't all of us sitting there that night.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that kept you through it.
Yes.
And also, you have your service dog Riley here, and
yes, I do.
You said that he's helped quite a bit with the process afterwards, specifically.
Yes, he does both. When I first registered Riley, he was registered as a PTS dog for emotional support. He showed a lot of promise to do other things, and throughout this process, I've lost more vision out of my right eye. And at times where we thought I would get it back, it wasn't necessarily the case. My peripheral vision is affected to the point that I run my elbows and shoulders into doorways and people, long hallways. You'll find me scrubbing down the wall, but he serves as my buffer. He guides me. He's not necessarily a CNI dog, but he does keep me righted.
Straight.
Yes, he does. He can tell even before I can that I'm going to have a bad day.
Yeah.
Which I still do. There's some days that this accident seemed like it was 10 years ago, and then there's some days that it seems like it was just 10 minutes ago. He knows which day's which.
That's pretty great. I'm glad you have him to keep you going straight down hallways and keeping you happy. But afterwards, like, how are you currently? Like, what? I mean, I know you mentioned your vision in your right eye is not doing too well, but other than that, how are you?
I'm doing good. I have one more surgery to go. It's going to be a pretty rough one, so I've been kind of putting it off. I've gone back to physical therapy a couple times a week. That's one of the pictures that we're currently looking at is pretty early in the game of me being home and being in physical therapy. I can tell by the fact that I'm in the picture that I'm wearing the compression garments. Those are not the garments that I got measured for. Those are just some kind of create as you go stuff. That was a very rough time for me, was when they put me in the compression garments. Of course, I got out of the hospital in June, and they put me in basically a zip-up suit that I had to wear my clothes over in the middle of the summer, and my inner thermometer is still on the fritz as it is, and it was just miserable, hot, and itching.
Like a big old body cast almost.
Yeah, in a way it was. It was very constricting. It puts pressure on the nerve endings, and what it does is it also pushes on the scar tissue and kind of flattens that stuff out. And it was beneficial for a while, but with the way I was burned and in places, it's impossible to get the suit to fit just perfect. And it was kind of doing more damage in some places than it was doing good in others. So I eventually had to scrap the idea of the full compression suit. I still wear garments and stuff on my arms and hands, depending on what I'm doing. Gloves are real critical in me manipulating very much. The worst of my injuries were to my hands. I didn't know that 4th degree burns existed, but that is when it is through tendon and bone. And that's pretty much what I was from halfway up my arms on both sides down. The physical therapy hurts, but it is also a relief when I leave the building.
And you can kind of tell that it's helping.
Yes, but we have, between doctors and therapists and myself, physical therapy is just going to kind of be a part of my life. It is. It's a ever-changing tightness to my skin and kind of a sensation that it's a changing pain. Even you never know from day to day what or where is going to hurt.
Yeah.
And not every day is awful. It's not. I've got a lot of good days. The recent weather change, with it being where it's been warmer and drier, has caused a little bit of tightness and things like that. The doctor's visits and things like that are all slowing down. I believe after the next surgery will be the last until something absolutely has to be done.
Yeah. Do you mind saying what the surgery is or
No,
where it's at?
I don't. Now, I'm sure everybody can definitely tell me being on camera is my nose is crooked. That's been that way for a long time, but there is new scar tissue on top of the old break. And what they're going to do is, they have already tried to fix it once and it just grew back. So I have a little bit of trouble sleeping because of breathing. And they're going to go back in and re-break my nose and set it to where it's straight and open up all the passageways. That way maybe I can breathe and maybe sleep a little better.
Yeah, that'll be a big change, I bet.
That was, honestly though, that was the roughest surgery I had, was when they went in and fixed my nose the first time. So I'm not looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I wouldn't be either, but with how you said it's the worst one you've had. Now, on to the aftermath of the distillery. Is it still there? Did they rebuild? Are they planning on it?
No. LBL Moonshine, which was the main product of Silvertrails Distillery, it lived on. A friend of ours, the owner, Spencer Valentine, and I, has a distillery in Pembroke, Kentucky, which is called M.B. Rowland. They were part of that circle in the wagons. They were there for us quite a bit. And they were also a partner, so to speak, with Possum Steelworks, which was the actual entity that produced the George Jones White Lightning. It was just another holding company created by LBL and by the George Jones Group. And so they took over the production of LBL. They had their own thing going, were growing, and it just kind of became a hectic thing for all involved. I kind of stepped out of my kind of medical leave, I guess, and orchestrated the move for LBL Moonshine to Silent Brigade Distillery in Paducah. Currently, Silent Brigade and LBL has both sold. That is in the process as we speak. There is a group of wealthy people that have bought that distillery, the 2 buildings on either side of it, and a whole nother distillery in Hickman, Kentucky. It's a very large, for a craft distillery like we were, it's actually bigger than Maker's Mark, which is not so craft anymore. So they are planning on doing some bigger production numbers than what we did. But from what I understand, they are planning on building on the LBL legacy and LBL name.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm glad there's a clear pathway for that. Also, afterwards, there was a scholarship in Kyle's name for the band here. Do you know if that's still in effect or if they're going to keep it?
It has been in effect from as soon as we got out of the hospital. That was something we all kind of started on, Kyle's family, the distillery, and myself. With the label selling, we're going to do our best to hopefully keep that scholarship intact with the LBL name. But that is really going to be up to the new owners as far as what they want to do with that. I have been approached by the Kentucky Distillers Association and have been asked if I would be interested in a position, possibly a management position with the new company. So if that is to be, that is one of the things that I hope to take with me, is to take Kyle's legacy along with me to continue that journey.
So that's something you definitely see in your future?
I can't really say I definitely see it. It's something I want to see. It's something I want to do.
All right.
I'm going to be pretty picky about it, I will say. There's going to be it's kind of going to have to be my way to a certain extent. I've got a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience in this, and I've got a lot of people to back me up on that, and so I'm gonna have to be kind of a little bit more in charge of production and quality than I'll think about it.
That's great to hear that that's possibly going to be in your future, and this didn't ruin it for you. But we're going to have to wrap this episode up. Thank you very much for coming. I'm Luke Hale, and this was Calloway Connections.
Thank you.
Thank you.